Hey everyone, and welcome to the 56th episode of the Liam McCullum Show. This episode was recorded June 29th, 2021. For parents with kids around, this episode has some explicit language. All right, so this interview was a really great one, but it was also very stressful preparing for. For all of you who know, or I guess don't know what's going on in the Libertarian Party, there has been a lot of shifts of power and a lot of drama, a lot of people who don't like these shifts in power, and some of it is affecting at the local level. I am a Mises Caucus organizer in the state of Montana, and I am getting involved building the party here. I also have been a proponent of liberty unity, so I'm willing to work with really anyone here. I decided to get involved because the people I listen to on certain podcasts like Scott Horton and Tom Woods and all of these people started joining the party to bring the Ron Paul supporters away from the Republican Party, where they really do not belong, and into the Libertarian Party. That's where I come from. My guest is also a part of the Mises Caucus, but he's also been in a lot of the conflicts going on at National. I like the guy and I supported his run for chair in 2020, but I also know that he has had some personal conflicts with people in Montana, and I know it's made a few people angry and unwilling to work with some of us at local levels. So knowing and sympathizing with these people on the ground here, but also supporting Mises's efforts, I decided to bring Joshua Smith on to talk about his amazing personal story, religion, LP drama, localism, and his perspective and goals with the party. I hope that people here on the ground can see that he really does want liberty to grow and has a great strategy to do so that I think everyone can agree with. I also hope I did a good job trying to represent Montana and the people who have been less open to the Mises Caucus here. If not, I want to hear from you guys. I want to work with you guys to build. Here's Josh. All right, so this is another great interview. It's with Joshua Smith. I actually discovered him a few years ago when I joined the LP. I voted for him when I went to the convention as an alternate, and I got the chance to vote him in. So this is an awesome opportunity. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, of course, man. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Hey, thanks so much for making a platform to speak that liberty shit on, dude.
Oh yeah.
Appreciate it.
I really want to just hop into your story because I personally don't know it. And I know that you were in the military at one point, but how did you become a libertarian?
Well, it was exactly that. I mean, it was the military. I joined the military not long after 9/11 to go and fight the evil terrorists that had attacked my countrymen. And I was young, I was really young, 18, 19. And within 5 months of being in the military, I was in the middle of the Persian Gulf on the USS Constellation, and we were fighting a war in Iraq. And my young self kind of looked around and was like, "Hey, man, what the fuck are we doing in Iraq? What are we doing here? What's going on?" And I just started kind of going down that rabbit hole as far as like, well, there's no weapons of mass destruction here. These aren't the people that were involved in 9/11. What's going on? And now here many years later, I know that it's kind of like a macroeconomics issue over the petrodollar, right? That's what this war is about. And it was baby Bush trying to finish daddy Bush's unfinished wars. But so when I got out, I was really, really jaded on the military industrial complex. I mean, just absolutely thrashed. I wasn't happy about it. I got out of the military. I didn't really find a home in the Republican Party anymore. And then I've been a registered Republican voter. And I was just really jaded and didn't really have a political home. They still, both parties wanted forever wars with Afghanistan and Iraq, and then, eventually we go to Syria, and it's like none of the Republican Congresses or senators or president or any of the executive branch. I mean, they weren't taking us out of war. There might have been a few here and there that didn't want war. Ron Paul, obviously, but I found Ron Paul in 2007, and I was just absolutely blown away by this man. He was saying exactly how I felt. Like, I didn't give a shit about what people did, like, in their personal lives. Like, I never cared about any of that stuff. I just, when it came to economic conservatism, I mean, the only home I thought I had was the Republican Party. But once they showed that they were warmongers too, it wasn't my home anymore. But here's Ron Paul going on national television, calling Congress psychopaths and saying end the wars and the Federal Reserve. He's the one that explained to me how the Federal Reserve worked. He's the reason why I know that the Federal Reserve is part of the reason why we're in these forever wars. And so I jumped on Ron Paul's campaign in 2008. I worked as a coordinator there in California. very, very hard for a absolute losing fool's errand. And watching the way that they treated Ron Paul over, the 2008 and then 2012 again. I mean, the media, the Republican Party, every convention, they were locking up Ron Paul delegates. I mean, they were literally arresting Ron Paul delegates in Louisiana. Um, I couldn't do it anymore. The Republican Party had officially left me. I was a liberty person. By 2012, I had read Murray Rothbard. I had read F.A. Hayek, Tom Sowell. I had read all these great authors, and I had opened a window that was never again going to shut. You know what I mean? That's it. It was going to be open forever. I was always going to fight to limit the state or roll back the size and scope of intrusive government, or, end the Fed, end the wars, end the drug wars, complete criminal justice overhaul. I was always going to fight these issues, and the Republican Party had left me. And so in 2016, I had done some publication stuff. I helped start a publication called Think Liberty, another one called Dankritarians. And we had been doing some pretty cool stuff. I was getting to do some writing. I was interviewing some of my heroes for a little show that we had on YouTube. And in 2016, I'm watching this farce. This is it really going to be the reality TV show versus the kill you if you say something bad about me lady? Like, this is not good. And so I decided to get involved with the Libertarian Party. This will be my second time. The first time I joined in like 2010, and I wasn't happy with the party, what they were doing in 2010. So I only gave to them for like 3 months, but I was a registered Libertarian voter from 2010 on. And so I joined the Libertarian Party. I actually showed up to my first state convention in Washington State in 2016. And I was the only one who showed up from my region. And so I was made the region rep. I had never done any kind of party work other than campaign stuff. So I was like, I can do this. I started building local affiliates and writing bylaws and the Constitution, like a county constitution and all this stuff that, I had never done before. And it was kind of my segue into leadership. And then after the election, I stayed with the party. I kept working with my local party, and I'm watching this Nick Sarwark guy, and for me, it was like, at first I was like, oh, this guy's pretty badass. He's got up on stage. He's like, your tears are delicious and your parties will die, and I was like, yeah, dude, this guy's cool. I like this guy. Yeah, that's our fucking chair, and then it was like a matter of weeks later, he's attacking Eric July. He's attacking Tom Woods. He's going after Dave Smith and Michael Bolden and just all these great people that I looked up to. And at this point I knew who all these people were. I was listening to their shows. I was reading their books. Like, I'm like, wait a minute. What's going on here? You're the Libertarian Party, like you guys are the Libertarians and you're the Libertarian Party. What are you doing? And so I was really, really upset. And I started calling around for the 2018 convention. And I started calling around a bunch of the bigger name libertarians I knew. And I was like, man, you got to run against this slimy bastard. You know what I mean? Like, someone's got to run against this guy. And everybody was kind of just like, you're crazy, man. That's the most, cherished chairman the party has had. It's 2-term. He's a trial lawyer, blah, 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 blah. No one would do it. No one was brave enough to run against the Sarwoke. And so I had the publication at the time. We had about 17,000 followers. And I dropped an intent to run statement to see what happened, and I didn't ever think it was going to be a big thing. I was kind of baby faced. I was a maintenance guy from the West Coast. I had a couple of decent suits, I'm like, let's see what happens. I ended up traveling like 26 states. I spoke in front of thousands of people, shook hands all over the country. I keynoted a ballroom right behind Ron Paul at the Omaha Roads to Freedom Unconvention in 2018. And then I lost to Nick. But I ended up on the board for the first time. And that's really where my national journey started, and now I'm in my second term as an at-large on the board. I ran for chair twice. I think I was robbed in 2020 as far as the vote goes. I think I probably was the rightful chair, but I'm not one of those guys going to run around yelling, "Stop the steal!" Like, all right, you guys likely cheated. The vote totals don't add up. And I only lost by 100 votes. So, but this is my second term in national leadership. I'm a stalwart for truth and justice on that board. There's a lot of really shitty people on that board right now, and I've just been trying to do everything I can to hold the ship together until the Mises Caucus can show up in 2022 at the National Convention in Reno and right the ship.
Yeah, and I have a question just about like your military career. You were actually in the Persian Gulf at one point. I think I heard that in
yeah, that's what made me, I was on the USS Constellation in the Gulf, 2002. In fact, I was sitting in the Gulf when George Bush declared war on Iraq. Like we were there. I remember I was, I was like, so they had this machine shop, and I had a buddy who worked in the machine shop late night. He was the only guy in there. So I'd go down there and smoke cigarettes, because if they close, they turn the smoking sponson light off, you can't go out and smoke. And so I'd go down to the machine shop, and because they had these machines, they had vents, and we'd go down there and I'd smoke in the machine shop and blow them out the vents, And we're down there, and they had the satellite TVs and shit like that, and George Bush is declaring war, and then all of a sudden they're like, birds away, and you're like, what the fuck, what's going on? People are running all over the ship, and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta get up to my shop, because I was just an ABF. I work with fuels and shit, and it was nonstop. So we were supposed to do a year-long world cruise. I was on the Constellation, and it was supposed to decom the ship. And so when they decom a ship, they do a world cruise all the way around the world. It's like a year long. You get to go to all these great countries. I'm like, what an awesome first duty station. This is awesome. And so we did Hong Kong, Singapore, and then we transited the Straits of Hormuz past Iran, which is scary shit if you've never been in the Navy and transited the Straits. There's like Scud missiles all along the shore just staring at you. And then we go into the Gulf, and we stopped in Bahrain once. And then George Bush declared war, and we were in the Gulf for like, I don't know, 5 months straight, dude. We had like back-to-back beer days without seeing any land. It was nuts. But we were the biggest part of the shock and awe campaign, and that really just didn't sit right with me. I mean, we dropped, I read what it was the other day, 142 tons or 141 million tons of ordnance on Baghdad or some shit like that. And it's like, dude, there was normal people there. Yeah. Dogs and family pets and people's cars and their livelihoods and their dreams and aspirations and goals for themselves and their families. And it's a big city, it's a big city, like our big cities where people live. And that was it for me. I was like, no, I don't want to be a part of this shit ever again. I don't ever want to do this again. And I'm going to try to deter as many people from doing it as I possibly can. And so the anti-war sentiment, I mean, that was my issue. And it's still my issue to this day. It's still, how can I get 300 million people to understand that these forever wars are bullshit and we should stop doing them? Because once everybody in this country understands that, they're going to stand up and tell the government, hey, we're not doing this anymore. But until they all understand that, they're just going to keep duping us, and us anti-war activists making us sound like conspiracy theorists and shit like that. So, but yeah, I was in the Gulf when George Bush declared war, George Bush Jr. So,
yeah, dang, that's crazy. And now you started this podcast, and it's actually growing quite a bit, and it looks the best, I'd say, out of all of the libertarian podcasts. So why'd you hop into this?
Yeah, well, so I put a lot of effort into it. Obviously, my background here, you can see, but I put a lot of effort into it because the last year has changed. My life has changed drastically. I went from being a bachelor living in a 3-bedroom townhouse in California with my best friend to having a fiance and 7 children. I know that sounds pretty crazy to happen in a year, but I moved to Iowa to be with my now fiance. We got pregnant in April. She had 2 daughters already. I got custody of my daughter in October. We were able to get custody of her 2 siblings that are not ours biologically, so that they didn't go to foster care. When we picked up my daughter in October, she was pregnant. We found out she was pregnant. And so my son was born on New Year's Eve. And then we had my daughter's daughter, my first grandchild, in March, the day after my birthday. So it didn't really afford me the opportunity to do what I had been doing before, which was traveling a lot. I had gone to 40 states over the last 3.5 years, 4 years, 40 states, man. I had done all kinds of really cool shit. It was amazing. It was an amazing ride. I got to meet everybody. I mean, I met everybody, but the cool thing about that was, because I had met everybody, it afforded me other luxuries. And now I have an opportunity to continue my work from my basement, this is my basement that you're looking at. This is my fully finished basement. And I get to continue my work without having to leave my family all the time. It's also the reason why I decided not to run for chair. Because if you remember, I had announced I was running for chair again. But I have full faith in Angela McArdle. I think she's great. I think she's going to do a wonderful job. She's a good friend of mine. We've hung out a lot. And so it was time for me to kind of hand that sword off and let someone else take a stab at the king. And this, like I said, this affords me the opportunity to continue my work, continue spreading the message. I've been really lucky to meet people like Dave Smith and Tom Woods and all these great people that want to come on my show because we know each other. So why not use, those contacts? And it's another revenue stream. It's another opportunity to a revenue stream to take care of my family of 9. I know I'm the sole provider for 9 people financially, and so between my day job and this, I mean, this is what we got. So it's a good way, if you can do it, to get paid for your activism and continue to spread the good word of liberty. So that's why I'm here, man.
Yeah, there's something I'm interested in. I can't remember which interview it was, but you seem to, I don't know how to phrase this question right. You seem to have mentioned that you're becoming more open to religion. Would you attribute like that to how transformative your life was been, or was that a misread?
So I grew up really religious.
Mhm.
Between my mom, so my grandfather was very Catholic, Italian Catholic, very very Catholic, and I would go to mass with him sometimes. I'd go to Christian church with my mom quite a bit too. So I grew up really religious, and I was religious. I was like a religious zealot neocon until I went to war, and then I had a lot of issues after I got back from Iraq, and it wasn't just due to the war. I mean, I didn't see combat. I'm not one of those people, but I had a lot of issues with what we had done over there, what I was a part of. And so it took a toll on me, and I had already had some anxiety issues before, um, anxiety and bipolar disorder long before I went in the military. But when I got out, it was really exacerbated, and so it took me a long time to adjust, to like trying to have a normal adult life, because I went in as a kid and came out an adult and didn't really know what to do with myself. And so there was a long time there where I had drug and alcohol problems and mental health issues, and I just kind of fell away from my faith for a long time. And over the last 2 years, I just kind of slowly been getting back into it. There's all kinds of events that I could point to and be like, oh yeah, some of this, some of that, some of this. But really a big part of it was finding my fiance, who's very religious. And she's very good at her religion and her faith. And it kind of helped to instill that faith, back into me. I think partners, this is something I had to learn. If anybody followed me on Facebook last year, I was not always the best partner in relationships. And so I started doing therapy and kind of asking questions about how I can be a better partner. And I think that becoming a better partner had a lot to do with me finding my faith again, to be honest with you, and it's also in return helped me be a better partner. And so I mean, there's a lot of things, a lot of different issues and stuff. Seeing my son's face for the first time, realizing there's beauty in the world, that there's no way some, just happened. And so I think the religion thing for me, it was a slow phase out and phase back in. And I'm happy. We go to church on Sundays when I'm off. I work every other Sunday, unfortunately, but and it's good. It's been good for the kids. The kids that we adopted had never gone to church, and they're very happy to go to church now. They get excited about it. So it's nice to see joy, even if whether they believe or not. It's nice to see their joy when we get to go. So
Yeah, that's great to hear, because I just heard it brought up like in one of the interviews I watched, and I'm a Christian, and I mean it's partially why I'm a libertarian, just because I think it's like uh, it providing the freedom for religious people to protect their rights to associate and practice religion. And I just think there's kind of like this debate going on right now that's pretty controversial about whether or not libertarianism is uh, Christianity without God or whatever. But
sure.
but yeah, I wanted to get more into your involvement with the LP. When you joined, was the party pretty small in your state?
The Washington party was actually doing pretty good. I want to say at the time that I joined the Washington State Party, uh, it was the like 12th maybe largest state affiliate, so it wasn't bad. But it has grown a lot and had grown a lot. And the Mises Caucus, I mean, they're honestly going into 2020 at the national convention, they were one of the best Mises caucuses like in the country.
Mhm.
They were badass. They took almost every single delegate slot, like 32 delegate slots. Um, But the problem with me was I lived in Vancouver, Washington, right? And so this is the original Vancouver. It's all the way south, right across the river from Portland, Oregon. Uh, they do not like libertarians in that area. Okay. I don't know if you know much about what's going on in Portland, Oregon, but Antifa basically runs the city. And I lived a little bit in the outskirts of the city. And so I had 5 regions. They made me the region rep. I went back down. I had 5 regions, 5 counties that I was overseeing, and only one had a county affiliate. So I got to work and started trying to build affiliates, man. You know what I mean? That was like my thing. I was like, I'm going to recruit people. I'm going to build affiliates, all this shit. And then I was going to run for state legislator there. Got wrapped up in that for a minute, and then found the Nick Sarwark thing, and no one was running. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to put this off and try to fix the party first before I try to run on, on the party ticket. And so it wasn't tiny, but it wasn't by any means the biggest state affiliate, but it definitely grew. And then when I left there, I went back to California, and I was in California for 2 years. And California is the biggest state affiliate in the country as far as Libertarian Party goes. It's California, Texas, and then Florida are the three bigs. And so I ended up becoming an at-large representative, basically for the California State Party. I ran for chair there and lost to a very wonderful, amazing chair. She's great, and probably in hindsight, I shouldn't have ran against her. She's really cool, but so I ended up on the board there. So I was an at-large on the California board. I was an at-large on the national board, and I was the treasurer for my county party because I went to the bathroom during elections and came back, and I was the treasurer. Suck on that one, Nick Sarwark. And so that was like, when I got to California, it was like I was really working all the time for the party. I mean, it was like full-time job, full-time party. I mean, just all the time, 80 hours a week, so and then now I'm in Iowa, where I have not been involved with the state party here almost at all since I moved here, because I've just been swamped doing the show, working for the national committee, and raising 7 kids. So
Yeah. So, and then I'm actually a Mises organizer with Montana, and I'm starting to get involved with the LP here. And Montana is actually very undeveloped. Like, we have one affiliate maybe, and it's kind of like we might be compliant, we might not be.
True.
But something that a conversation that's really going on right now is, I'm sure, the conversation that most affiliates are having across the country, and that kind of has something to do with the corruption that was going on at LP National. And you were pretty involved in that whole conversation. And I will say, like, I do know the people like Francis Went. I'm aware of Francis.
Rough. Sorry, dude. Yeah, I know he's from Montana. I apologize.
Well, and then I also know Richie Castaldo, and there's a certain there's a certain part of me though that, like, because Montana is so small, like you almost rely on them in a way here. So I was wondering if you could, like, recount what's going on there, and then we can talk about that, because just like full disclosure, like, we've kind of been struggling with what's going on just because it's fractured, like,
Sure.
so much. So could you kind of recount what's going on, and then we could get into that, and maybe you could give me some advice.
Yeah, long story short, the Prags did everything in their power to try and steal a state affiliate away from the Mises Caucus, who had rightfully been elected to the state board. There's now an investigation going forward, that we've created an investigation committee that's going to investigate the actual fraud and corruption that's taken place. So people will be like, there's nothing proven yet, but I saw it. Like, I watched it happen. I saw the change in words from the people that were involved and the people that were applauding and trying to advocate for the corruption, like Francis Went, like Tucker Coburn, like Joe Bishop Henchman, who all resigned in absolute shame, if you ask me. Joe Bishop Henchman essentially he lied and couldn't keep his lies straight. And said that he didn't know why he was sending a letter. He would send that letter to any chair that asked him, but Gilletta Jarvis let us know that she had told him why she needed the letter. Then we found out that he sent the letter to somebody else in the state. It wasn't even Gilletta that asked for it. And then he said that he knew, and he thought that there might be a fight over the social media, and that's why he sent the letter. And it's like, how many stories you got, man? You know what I mean? After the first story change, we knew you were lying, and he knew that we knew we were lying. He was lying, and then I made a motion to release all of his correspondence. Official party correspondence between him and New Hampshire, and he resigned that the next day. I made the motion. Within an hour of making the motion, all the digital assets were returned to the rightful New Hampshire board, and the next day, Joe Bishop Henchman resigned. That says a lot. And on his way out the door, he tried to throw this bomb to get rid of Karen Ann Harlos, who was even more staunch in the truth and justice department than I was. I love her. Watching her work has been an absolute treasure. And Tucker Coburn, he voted to remove a state from his own region, and they were going to recall him. He knew they were going to recall him, so he stepped down. And then Francis went and voted to remove Karen Ann Harlos, who was your region rep before Francis went. From what I understand, the state chairs there were getting together, and they were going to recall Francis Went. He knew they were going to recall him. So on the way out the door, as he's resigning, he blamed it on the Mises Caucus and me and Karen Ann Harlos and racism and bigotry. And it's like, okay, bud, you were about to get recalled by your state chairs for doing something that you didn't ask them if they wanted you to do. And that's why you're resigning. We know why you're resigning. Everyone knows why you're resigning. And so, I mean, that's really it in a nutshell. I mean, this was the Mises Caucus has now taken 25 state boards. 25. Half the country is Mises Caucus owned. And the Prags are the Prags are disbanded. They disbanded the caucus. It's gone because they tried and failed to do something very shitty behind the scenes. And they underestimated the opponent. I mean, at the end of the day, they underestimated the Mises Caucus. They underestimated me. They underestimated Karen Ann Harlos. And they shot their shot very shittily. I mean, it was just very shoddy organization, the whole thing, to the point of where it was obvious to everyone that it was corruption. Mm-hmm. Even the people who were saying it wasn't corruption know that it was corruption. They're just saying that because they were their friends. And so they shot their shot. They realized it was over, and they all took their balls and went home. Nick Sarwark stopped his donations to the National Party. We lost one or two big donors, and it's like, okay, now it's time to see what we can do, because you're not taking it from us anymore. It's over, and that's really it. That's really where we're at today. And now the investigation will go forward. I'm sure they'll find some kind of corruption, unless all the emails have been deleted, which I'm hoping they haven't, but that's where we're at.
Yeah. And then you were kind of talking about Liberty Unity and how you kind of just reject that. And I've been on Reed's show, and I think that my take about what Liberty Unity was isn't necessarily what the people at National have kind of been, or the people associating with the Unity movement have kind of been framing it as. Like, sure. A lot of them seem to use it as a face, but then they're like, well, we don't want any Mises people in here, right? So my approach was always like, I just wanted to bring the Ron Paul people who are outside of the party in, and then work with people who are willing to do it. And essentially my read was like, there are certain people like JBH, Sarwark, who, they don't want to work with us. But no, then
they never have.
Yeah. But then I will say there are some people at the local level where it's like, I heard this on James Lindsay's podcast the other day, where it's like, if there are two people fighting outside of a bar, they're both drunk, one's right, one's wrong, and a bystander walks by, they're just going to look and be like, well, they both look like idiots. And locally, just to be honest, like, people are upset with Mises too, like even from the right wing. So it's kind of been a little bit of a struggle, but it's also a struggle because these people who might not necessarily sympathize with Mises or Prags are like, well, we're screwed because Francis, who essentially built our party, is gone now. Sure. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about like what you would do when, because in a certain sense I do have to defend these people. But
don't ever defend Richie Castaldo, dude, ever.
Well, I won't defend Richie because I don't know him, but like Francis Went, my other Mises organizer, he like met with him, and he essentially allowed us to come into the party and was like, hey, like you can essentially help us build here. And And
Well,
then
he thinks you're a racist who supports bigotry, though. Just so you're aware. If you're Mises Caucus, that's how Francis Went feels about you. It's unfortunate because Francis at least has a couple redeeming qualities. He's a petty jerk most of the time. He has been to people on the board. He was more concerned about decorum than he was about actual blatant corruption. But you don't need Francis. You know what I mean? Like, you can build your own state party. That's the thing. You can build your own local affiliates. A lot of people don't know how to do that, but you can reach out to the affiliate support committee from the national committee and get all of the stuff you need to do to build affiliates. It's one link. It's an affiliate in a box link, and it gives you how to write the Constitution, how to write bylaws, how to take minutes at a meeting, and all you got to do is get four or more people, take 3 minutes or 3 meetings worth of minutes, and boom, there you go. Register with state, you're good. But you already have one registered. Like, your party's already registered with state. Montana is. What happened to Sid?
So Sid's actually the chair. And
he's still the chair, right?
Yeah. So Mises, and I don't want to necessarily speak for anyone, but like they have been starting to recognize that, like, hey, maybe this momentum that Mises has brought is good.
Good.
I don't want to speak for them because that might not be the case, right? But like, they're seeing this momentum and they do want to start to build, and they're like, well, we'll hold you accountable though. Like, you better not just be here for Reno.
Sure.
Which is a fair argument.
And you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be. Like Mises, we don't want people like that. We want people that are going to get active and take campaigns and work with campaigns. And we want people that are going to bust their ass to push liberty in this country through the Libertarian Party. That's what this PAC was started for. It wasn't started just to take over leadership positions. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I honestly, like, part of the reason why I wanted to have this conversation was just because I have a feeling that, the Francis Wentz, or at least the people who might, talk to him and have relationships with him, are going to listen to this just because of how local I am. So it's like, I just kind of wanted to bring you on and like say that is what your goal is, because sure. I mean, some other arguments from the right wing might be that, like, Mises looks like they're a bunch of influencers, but they're not doing anything on the ground. But it's like, we're trying to build right now, and we're in that stage. So I appreciate.
Well, here's the thing: there are influencers and big media people in the Mises Caucus.
Yeah,
but certainly not the majority of the Mises Caucus. The majority of the Mises Caucus are people like you, Liam. People that want to organize, want to get things done, want to end the Fed, want to end the wars, want to get people elected that are going to push for these things. Like, that's the vast majority. I mean, 95% of the people in the Mises Caucus, that's what they are. Mm-hmm. And then you have people like me and Dave and Tom, and who kind of lead the ship a little bit. Michael Heiss, obviously. Of course, we're influencers. We have the bigger platforms. We're trying to use those platforms to get more people to come on and take part in our causes, and take part in ending the Fed and ending the wars and ending the drug wars. Sid's a good guy, though. I like Sid. He's, I've had conversations with Sid. He's a good guy. He may not have liked me in the past or whatever, but I've always thought Sid was really cool. But that's what we want. That's what this whole thing was about. It was never just about taking leadership positions. Of course, if there's leadership that we don't agree with, we're going to try and get those leaders changed.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the whole thing with Nicholas Sarwark. We felt like he was holding the party back. He was keeping the Ron Paul revolution out of the Libertarian Party by just being the chair of the party. So we wanted to replace him. Then Joe came on, and kind of from the same wing, and it was like, okay, well, we didn't have as big of a problem with Joe, but then the lockdowns happened.
Yeah.
And he didn't say a word about him. In fact, he came out as in favor of vaccine passports and mandatory vaccine programs. It's like, no, what are you doing? We just had a year of tyranny handed to us on a silver platter. Yeah. And this is the direction you're going? Like, no. And so the Mises Caucus had a problem with him. It's the Mises Caucus has all these goals, those same goals as other people in the party. And I try to explain it to people like this. Yes, there's a takeover language. That's a thing. Okay. I never thought it was like the greatest thing until a couple years, like 2 years ago, when I realized there was people who simply are not going to work with us and are going to keep the party small. Yes, I want to take the party from you. I don't need you to leave the party, but I need you to take the back seat while I drive the car for a little bit, because I know what I'm doing better than you do. It's obvious. You've had a decade. It's not working. But to the people who are in the party, who are willing to work with us and willing to work with people that may not agree on every single little tiny issue, we're here as reinforcements, man. We're not here to take the party from you. We don't want to take the party from you. We want you. We want to work with you. We want to work together to end the wars and end the Fed and the size and scope of intrusive government and citizen spying and all this shit. We want to work with you on that. So we're just reinforcements. And I tried to explain that to somebody's like, well, this takeover language, what if there's somebody in there that loves Tom Woods and love Mises and all this stuff, but they've been working in the party for 10 years. And now you're saying you're going to come and take the party from them. And now you're driving them away from, no. We're here to help you. We're here to help all the people who work together in good faith. The people who don't work together in good faith can get fucked. That's essentially where we went with that. It was like the Andy Craigs and the Nick Sarwokes and these people who slander people, who lie about them, who are just vile towards anybody who just doesn't agree 100% on every little thing that they say. Like, we don't want to work with those people, and we never had any intention of working with those people. We intended to drown their voices out by growing the pond so big that they were no longer big fish in the pond. And that's what we're doing now. And they know that they've lost. That's why Andy stopped giving to the National Party and walked away. And he came in with Gary Johnson. It wasn't like he was this staunch libertarian that had been around for 20 years. And Nick Sarwark stopped giving money to the National Committee because they wouldn't remove Karen Ann Harlos. Like, shut up, dude. Shut up. She's been on that committee since 2016, and she has done more work than any of us. And so, no, I want people to know that when they talk about takeover language, it's not about taking the party from you, man, like at all. Of course we're going to try and run our people for leadership positions, but that is just one part of what the Mises Caucus is. The Mises Caucus is here to help candidates get elected, to craft messaging that resonates with people around the country, especially that anti-war message, and to bring Austrian economics back to the Libertarian Party, because it walked away when Cato and the Koch brothers basically screwed everybody over that helped them found the Cato Institute, and so that's where we're at, man. We're not coming to kick everybody out of their positions and hate everybody. We want to work with anybody that's willing to reduce the size and scope of intrusive government. So
yeah, and that's what Liberty Unity was for me. Like when I came into the Mises Caucus, like again, that was the goal. It was just to bring these who just were outside of the party and unite them with the ones who kind of built the party. And then with that being said, like there are the Sarwark group, like just these small amount of people who don't want to work with us, but like anyone else. But yeah, and you've been slandered by these people too.
Repeatedly.
Do you want to talk about that? Because I think that is important for people locally.
Oh man, where to start? It all started with a lady named Alicia Dern, man. She popped on the national chair race sometime after I had announced, and then her and her shitty campaign manager, Angela Fisher Owens, came to me, tried to get me to work with them against Nick Sarwark. I said, hell no, I'm running my own campaign. I'm running a clean campaign. And if I'm going to beat him, I'm going to beat him on the merits of my platform and the work that I'm bringing to the table. They weren't very happy about that. And then they, sometime later, they started taking shots at me and then started trying to tie me into some sexual harassment claim at my own state convention, which I smacked down with screenshot after screenshot after screenshot. I put out an entire article about it. They were everyone involved had to give official apologies through that same publication. And they were mad. And so I've been called everything in the book: deadbeat dad, abusive, sexual abuser, drug addict, a drunk, in and out of mental institutions and all this shit that is simply not true. I mean, there is no proof for any of this. I have no charges. Haven't been 5150'd. I'm not a drug addict anymore. I've been cleaned off drugs for over a decade. I drink occasionally, but it's very few and far between that I have a drink. There was a time during the campaign in 2017-18 where it was like I was at a convention every single weekend for like 20 weeks in a row or something. And so I would have drinks on the weekend because libertarians like, let me buy you a drink. And it's like, I'm trying to make these inroads but I never got, shit face, fall down drunk or anything like that. And, but it never stopped. I've been called a Nazi and white nationalist and KKK and, neo-Confederate and, all the words they like to use, but it sucks because it was for my own party. But now that, I've been dropping receipts for a while now to prove that people are wrong. You know, this child support issue, here you go. Here's my receipts, years and years and years of monthly payment. Here you go. What are you going to say now? This shit with my daughter and these kids. It's like, oh, I'm raising 7 kids. I can prove it. Here you go. You know, I got the receipts. You know, that I don't have a job. I'm the sole financial provider for 9 people. Prove that I'm not, you know, that I'm a grifter, that I don't believe what I'm saying. I mean, it's just anything you can think of. These people have thrown at me to the point of where now it's just funny. Like, I don't even care. I used to, you know, when I was running for chairman the first time, it was all about how I could please people. You know, I got to make these inroads. How can I talk to these people that are attacking me nicely? You know, I don't do that anymore. I call them fucking nerds, because that's what they are. At the end of the day, these are the same people that wouldn't look me in the eye at national convention. They wouldn't look me in the eye at their state conventions. You know, I showed up and they're like, well, this guy's 6'2" and 240 pounds. I had no idea. Like, maybe you shouldn't run your mouth on the internet, you know? And I've said it for a while. I think there's a lot of people in this party that have benefited from a long life of never being popped in the mouth. You know, I really do. And you know, that's all it is. It's they're really tough online, and then they get in person and they don't even look at you. So I just laugh at them now. I really do. I call them nerds and move on. You know, if you watch the LNC meeting, you know that occasionally I've told people to eat and suck dicks and called them nerds, and they were really upset about that. But I'm not going to apologize for it. These are the same people that have been attacking me and my family for 4 years straight. If you're mad at me for doing that, I don't care. You know how to block me. You know. So
Yeah. And then I did want to bring up one more thing that I've been hearing just down on the ground. Like another thing that I've been hearing is, just since Montana is so it already has like this Republican leave me alone culture, right? Like,
sure.
I would argue that Montana is probably one of the most libertarian states. I mean, we passed a sanctuary gun legislation that essentially, like, constitutional carry, nullified all federal gun
All
laws.
federal laws. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
that. Yep.
Yeah, we also have marijuana sanctuary city, or sanctuary state now, essentially. We got rid of occupational licensing laws.
That's a good one.
So yeah, I mean, it's just like, just within the last legislature. So this kind of interesting perspective that's been brought up, that I'm kind of like not necessarily entertaining, because I'm still with the LP and everything, but it's like, I've had people who really helped the Mises Caucus grow here and the LP grow drop out, because they're like, well, like, LP national, well, the main concern is just that, like, the party seems centralized and we need to focus on localities. And I'm wondering if you think that, like, this conflict that happened at national has anything to do with the party being centralized, and like whether or not we could decentralize more, or if because there's also this argument that, like, this conflict only happens in the Beltway area, and like the West is already libertarian, and we should, like, focus more resources here. And I guess that's what the Frontier Project's for.
That's what the Frontier Project is. And Paul Pizzell, who's the you know, one of the two candidate coordinators for the National Party, has really spearheaded the whole Frontier Project. He's amazing. He's one of the greatest assets this party has probably ever had. I don't know. Most people don't understand that about Apollo. He's a fucking rock star. That man is amazing, amazing, amazing. And he went out and targeted races, man. I mean, by himself, went out and targeted races in Montana, Wyoming, Utah, a bunch of other places out there in the West, and said, these are targeted races that we can win. You know, and he told us we can win these races. These are statewide races that we can win. And he said, this is what it's going to cost, and this is what I'm going to do. And he wrote out a whole package for us. And he brought to the LNC, and I was willing to fist fight anybody on the LNC that would vote against it. I mean, essentially, that's where I was. I was like, this is one of the smartest things we can do as a party right now. We should have been doing this 50 years ago. The fact that we're not is asinine. And Apollo spearheaded that, and now it's growing. I mean, people are donating directly to the Frontier Project because we have 2 state legislators now, something we haven't done as a national party since the 70s. You know, I mean, we've had people flip. We had 3 New Hampshire state reps flip from two from Republicans, 1 from Democrats in 2018. They all lost as libertarians. Now we're winning races as libertarians as state legislator. That's huge. That has not happened since the 70s. And I think the last time it happened was like in Alaska or something. So that's a huge thing. That's a really cool thing. And anybody who knows Apollo Pazel should give Apollo Pazel money to continue to do what he's doing. And yes, I think we should target races, especially in highly libertarian places like that, like Montana and Utah and Wyoming and here in Iowa even. I mean, I'm talking about maybe running for Congress here. I know it's not a statewide race, but we have one Democratic congressperson here who won her race by 2 points. 2 points. Throw a strong talking libertarian in there with hardcore libertarian ideals. I bet she loses.
Yeah.
And hell, maybe I get a high enough total to do something good here. But we should be focusing resources on places where we know we can win. If we're throwing money at races that we know we're going to lose, we're throwing money at races that we know we're going to lose. And it's an unfortunate part of being a third party. But we are the fastest growing third party in the country, and we have some real steam behind us, especially with the Mises Caucus coming in and kind of taking the sails. And we have to run a presidential candidate every year because that's how we keep ballot access in like 28 of our states. So the people who are like, oh, don't even run a presidential candidate, they just don't know that we have to do that. But yeah, man, take state. That's where I love the Mises Caucus because they focus locally. I think it's great. I think the National Party should do more focused on state races because really that's where they can make the most difference too. Imagine if we got 6 state legislators in one state. Now we're changing the whole narrative of that state. I mean, easily. They have to. Now we have a voting block in that state, and the Republicans and Democrats are going to have to come to the Libertarians and say, hey, make deals, to get shit passed. That's good. That's where we want to take the party. And I think we have competent people now that the party has not had over the last 10 years that are getting into positions to make that happen. So,
yeah. And now that nullification is just like entering the Overton window, like I think that it really has to be where the LP focuses resources. And
oh yeah.
And just to, like verify what you're saying, when I got involved with them, they told me there was like two planks that they were going to focus on. The first was just the presidential election for essentially just advertising, and then pour all resources into local races. Sure. And I just think that like maybe if I did have one criticism and kind of like lean towards what this guy was saying, I would just say that like the narrative should be that way too, and we should really start focusing on that.
Yeah, I think taking over municipalities is really important. For the libertarians, because that's where we get the opportunity to show our communities what libertarian policy can do to enrich their lives. I had a conversation with Patrick Smith, who ran for not governor of Texas a few years ago. Great guy, one of the most pure, amazing anarchists I've ever met. He told me, I asked him, what do you think the most important thing to do to change the narrative in this country is? What do you think the most important thing to do to move the country towards a libertarian society is? And he said, change yourself. He said, start on yourself, man. Become successful, be financially secure, take care of your family. Because then your community starts to see that. The people around you start to see that. They start doing that kind of stuff. So it's the same thing with the municipalities. I mean, we have the opportunity to change communities. And when you change communities, the community next to your community sees your community as a better community, and they want to start changing their community. It's the same thing. It's the same equation, So it is an important thing, and I think that the Libertarian Party has largely just kind of forgot about local races and county races, and I think that a lot of that changed when Jeff Hewitt won county supervisor in Riverside County. I think people started kind of taking him a little more seriously and going, oh, well, look, he went from Merrick, Mesa, a little tiny town in the high desert, to the Riverside County Board of Supervisors of a county that has a $2 billion budget and has a constituency bigger than like 8 other states. That's a big deal, and that's a libertarian in there doing that. And so I think people are starting to come around to that idea, and I hope more do. But, I always want to win state legislator seats because we can make a big difference there too. I don't put a lot of stock into congressional and Senate races right now. I don't think we're going to win them. I just don't think we're going to win them. I know that the people that should be running those races are the people that already have big platforms. If you're a libertarian with a big platform, go ahead and run for a federal election. That's cool. You know what I mean? Like, I think that I've grown a big enough platform where I can run for a federal election. I think that Dave Smith could probably do that. I think there's some people out there that can. But if you don't have a big platform, don't be like John Waldendorf out in Pennsylvania and announce that you're running for lieutenant governor, where you get ratioed on your own announcement for lieutenant governor. Like, don't do that. You take away the credibility of the party when you do that kind of stuff. Go run for your local school board. Go run for county sheriff. Go run for city council. Then grow your platform from that and use that to move up. If you win city council, great. You're a city council member now. That's awesome. You have the opportunity to make a difference in your county. Now your platform's growing. So next time you run, you can run for state legislator, or county supervisor, or whatever it is that you want to do. But start where you can start. If you have the platform for it, then do it. If you don't, please start smaller. Just be logical when you make those decisions,
Yeah. Yeah. And then so with the presidency, I know that there's a lot of people who wouldn't back, I know a lot of Prags wouldn't back Dave Smith, or there was a time where they said that if Dave Smith, won the nomination, they just
they're all gone anyways. They all left. Who cares?
And I was going to say another benefit of, I guess, if there are people locally who are kind of sad that the Prags dissolved, it's like now the Frontier Institute got all their funds. Like, they gave all their funds to
I saw that.
The Frontier Project, which is great for us.
That's the best thing the Prags have done in years.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, what else have they done? I mean, they really haven't done anything else. The Prags' whole thing, like, literally was keep anybody we don't like out of leadership positions. That's like literally what they did all the time. They had like big, huge whiteboards of leadership positions at national, and they're like, okay, we're going to put this person here and this person here. It's like, man, we showed up with like paperwork and we're like, these are the people we're running. Everyone have fun. You know what I mean? Like, we're working on all kinds of campaigns. They focus so much on the one presidential campaign every 4 years, and then like defeating all the people they didn't like in leadership positions. And it's like, like the Mises Caucus does that kind of too, but like, for completely different reasons. And it's not their only focus. It's not their sole focus. They have three, huge like focuses. And one of them's local elections, getting people to win. One of them is issues-based coalitions. So working on, different issues around the country, like the decriminalized Denver thing Mises was a part of that. And then the last but not least is the changing the Overton window in the party by installing good leadership. And so I'm sorry to see him go. Good luck. I hope you guys do something great, and maybe you'll find liberty somewhere else, but we're going to keep doing what we're doing regardless. And if Dave Smith gets the nomination, I would be willing to bet a lot of money he gets a lot more votes than Joe Jorgensen did.
Yeah, definitely. Would you back any of the other candidates if they got nominations, like Amash or Cohen or?
Undoubtedly, yeah, undoubtedly, either one. Yeah, absolutely. Cohen for awesome reasons, because I love Spike. He's a good friend of mine. I think the Jorgensen campaign would have done a lot worse if it hadn't been for Spike Cohen. I think he was the big drive for a lot of people to vote for that campaign, and he was unknown. I mean, Spike was almost completely unknown. They had 35 people that watched their podcast once a week. I mean, he was largely unknown. Now he's known all over the country. People know him all over the country. He's still doing liberty things, still traveling. I'm very proud of my friend Spike, and I'm very happy to see what he's doing. We didn't always agree on every single thing he said, but he did a great job. He's very radical, stayed very principled. So yeah, absolutely, I would vote for him, and 100% I'd vote for Amash too. I think Amash has got the political credibility mostly. I think he took the Orange Man bad thing obviously a little too far. And that might have hurt his credibility with some people, but I like Justin Amash. Like, I was a little upset that he endorsed Joe Bishop Hinchman over me without talking to me in 2020. But I like Amash. I like Justin Amash. I think he's great. I think he's been one of the best congressional people we've had in my lifetime. He's right up there under Ron Paul somewhere. And so, there's no way I would not vote for Justin Amash unless he came out as like, I don't know, I don't know. If he decided that wars were cool and you know what I mean, like, then we'd talk. But for the most part, his platform would probably be right around where I want presidential candidates to be. Maybe not as radical, but he's got the credibility and people know who he is, and he knows how to speak pretty well. So
yeah.
Little blue pilled.
It's true, but I think in the same way that Dave Smith would like have the media presence, Amash would also have the credibility because of his position.
I think that Amash would get a lot of mainstream media attention, a lot. I think Dave Smith would get on a lot of mainstream media as well. He already does. He already gets on Kennedy. I mean, he probably gets on mainstream media more than Justin Amash does right now. But he also can go on Rogan and you know, all these great big shows that have millions and millions of followers. Joe couldn't do that. You know what I mean? And Gary, even to an extent, really couldn't do that. And so I think Dave, in my opinion, is the best choice. And I hope that he runs, and I hope that he picks a just absolute fire breathing vice presidential candidate, somebody like Tom Woods or Michael Malice. It's not going to happen, but or maybe there's a Smith ticket in the future. You know,
That would be sweet. That'd be sweet.
Yeah.
I did hear he said if Eric July announced that he would do it right now, he'd run.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Or Maj Touré, that'd be fun too.
Yeah.
Dave Smith and Maj Touré would just, I mean, people would not show up to the debates. They'd be like, "Oh, I'm scared of that. I'm out of here." You know, they treat him like Ricky Harrington and down in Arkansas. You know, Ricky Harrington, the black Southern preacher who ran as a libertarian against Tom Cotton, got like 30-something% of the vote, one of the highest U.S. Senate vote totals we ever got. He showed up to the public broadcaster. What was it? Was it PBS? I think it was PBS Arkansas. So it was like, you know, their big state channel. He showed up to a 1-hour debate, and Tom Cotton didn't show up. So they gave him 1 hour to address the constituency from the debate stage, our libertarian. And he did really well, 30 something. I think he took over a third of the vote from Tom Cotton, you know, longtime senator. So pretty cool.
Yeah. And then I know you have to go soon. I was just wondering, were you paying attention at all to like the conflict that went on just a couple days ago with Dave Smith, or is his name Vic Armani or Vin?
Yeah, but he changed it to like Cipriani or some weird shit like that.
And then
like goofy asshole.
Yeah, and then who's the other one? Matt Erickson.
King Pilled. Matt Erickson. I like Matt. Matt's cool.
I think he had some interesting perspectives just as a Christian. It was like, whoa, like
yeah.
But
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of him. He's new to me. I know he works with is it Jason Stapleton show or something? I haven't watched any of Jason Stapleton's new stuff. It's been a long time, but I actually really like Matt. He was cool. I don't like Vin and Armani at all. At all. He's like a fucking narcissistic weirdo.
Yeah. He seemed to kind of be projecting a little bit.
Yeah, he's, you know, there was a time when I followed him and I kind of liked what he said. I really, you know, I'm really into crypto. I think crypto is one of the tools we should be using to push back the state. One of the biggest tools, in my opinion. Bitcoin, for sure. Buy Bitcoin, you know. But Vin he just took it to this extreme where it's like he was going to go attack people for not doing exactly what he's doing, you know, moving to fucking Bora Bora or some shit, some weird place, you know, on an island and trying to get a fucking, like, dude, we can't all do that, man. You know what I mean? I can't uproot my family of 9 and go be an agorist, dude. Agorism doesn't pay my taxes, unfortunately. You know what I mean? It doesn't pay my bills and fucking, it doesn't take care of my family. So we don't all have that luxury. So some of us are going to use any other tools we can find. And that's why I work with the Libertarian Party. I'm an anarchist, dude, at heart. I mean, Murray Rothbard is who shaped who I am today. But I understand that, you know, if I have 4 different tools at my disposal and I'm not trying to use them all, then I'm probably not going to get done what I need to get done. So I just don't agree with him. I don't agree with, you know, Sally Mayweather on Twitter either. I think those guys are kind of assholes for going at the Mises Caucus for trying to shift the Overton window in politics, but, you know, they're allowed to do and be whoever they want to be.
Yeah. I think there is some legitimacy to like the idea that Ron Paul campaign brought all of them in. Like, so.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt about it. I mean, my whole generation was brought into liberty. Anybody who was brought into liberty in my generation, almost exclusive. And I'm 38, right? So anybody from like 25 to 38, like in my opinion, was probably 90% brought in by Ron Paul. And so if you can't grasp that, you know what I mean, then I don't have a starting place to have a conversation with you if you're going to act like that didn't happen, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, like where we could focus locally in Montana, we could focus like at the national level and try to advertise in places where there really isn't liberty at all. I really am more optimistic than most people because like we have states like Montana that are nullifying. So that's kind of just, I wanted to bring you on to talk about like everything that I'm hearing at the ground level, and just see what your response was. Hopefully people are listening, so they can see what your perspective is. I'm trying not to take a side on everyone, because like I'm trying to get in the LP here and really build. Like that is the
Sure.
goal. Build locally and try to move the needle. So I appreciate you coming on. If there's anything else that you want to say, please do.
Nah, man, just if you're seeing this, follow me at youtube.com/fight the despots. Check out the show. On Monday, tomorrow, I start doing 5 shows a week, man. So it's a pretty fire lineup. It's going to be really good. And of course, follow me at Twitter at Joshua at Large, where I'm at war with the blue check marks. It's a good time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
It's the weekend and we can let go. It's the full send, it's the get go. It's the get go.